Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. The title of our session is Money Left on the Table, Common Coding, Billing, and Workflow Errors That Cost You. As administrators, you are the bridge between clinical and financial success in your practice, and too often, money is lost not because of poor patient care, but because of errors or inefficiencies in coding, billing, or workflow. Today, we'll walk through the most common problem areas, look at real-world examples, and discuss strategies you can use to protect your practice's revenue. By the end of this session, you'll leave with several takeaways: insight into the most common errors that ophthalmology practices face, practical advice on how to recognize and prevent those errors, tips for strengthening your workflows, and strategies that you can start implementing right away. The goal is not just awareness, but actionable steps that you can bring back to your team. Let's start with coding. Coding errors are one of the most frequent and costly reasons for lost revenue. One issue is under-documenting the HPI or MDM. When documentation is incomplete, you end up coding at a lower level than you should, leaving revenue behind. Another common mistake is missing modifiers, especially the 25 modifier when a visit includes diagnostic testing. Without it, insurers may deny that claim. We also see practices using outdated codes, especially in retina and glaucoma. When codes change, old habits cause denials. And then there's the misuse of 99211. Many practices bill it incorrectly for tech-only visits, and that can raise audit flags. And finally, errors with bilateral procedures. Miss a modifier or use the wrong code, and you've cut out reimbursement. You may have cut it in half. These may seem small individually, but across hundreds of patients and multiple providers, they add up to a major revenue leak. Let's talk about a real-world example. I worked with a practice that was consistently undercoding post-op visits. Individually, it looked like they were losing just $20 or $40 per claim, but over the course of a year, with hundreds of patients, it added up to tens of thousands of dollars. This is why attention to detail matters so much. A small error, repeated daily, turns into a massive financial hit for your practice. Think about missing billing for extended ophthalmoscopy. A retina specialist performs a detailed indirect ophthalmoscopy on a diabetic. The revenue impact is $30 to $60 per occurrence per provider, adding up to thousands of dollars. The root cause? Lack of documentation and workflow prompts. Failure to bill for technician-performed testing. This is about $40 to $100 per test, potentially hundreds per week. And the root cause is incomplete documentation or missing provider interpretation. Now let's talk about workflow. Revenue isn't only lost through coding mistakes, it's also lost through inefficiencies in workflow. For example, if front desk staff don't collect complete insurance information, you may wind up with denials and delays. If communication breaks down between technicians, scribes, and billing, diagnostic tests may be performed but never billed. And sometimes charges just sit waiting to be entered, which means slower cash flow. Remember, work inefficiency can be just as costly as a coding mistake. I want to share this quote from Catherine O'Leary at KPMG. She said, "You want to get every dollar you're entitled to. You want to receive payment as fast as possible. And you want to make sure that you're doing it in a legal manner. That is the core of revenue cycle management." And that's exactly what we're aiming for in ophthalmology. Clean documentation, clean processes, and clean claims. That's how we protect revenue and stay compliant. So how can you protect your revenue? How do we make that happen? First, train your front desk and technicians to gather complete, accurate information. Administrators need to oversee this and enforce it. In my practice, we conducted monthly chart audits. We would choose 10 surgery charts and 15 office visit charts at random that had visits that month. We would pair up a clinical staff member with a clerical staff member, and we would have them audit the charts together. The clinical staff member can add clinical insight to what they're seeing on the paper or on the encounter, and the clerical person can add billing and coding information. So each of them can learn from one another. Then I gave them a form to fill out, and they would then bring it to me. And if there were any areas of special concern, I would address it with them and my billing people. Then, once a month in our monthly staff meeting, we would share the results of that month's audit. And it's an opportunity for everyone to learn from our mistakes. Use checklists or smart phrases in your HR to ensure documentation is thorough and nothing is missed. Third, review and audit 10 to 15 charts per month. This is manageable, and it gives you a clear picture of where money might be slipping away. Fourth, establish a clear communication process for diagnostic tests. If a test is ordered, everyone should know it must also be billed. And finally, foster partnership between your billing team and your clinical team. Too often they work in silos, but when they collaborate, revenue improves dramatically. The bottom line is this: workflow and documentation can either protect your revenue or sabotage it. As administrators, you set the tone, you build the culture of accountability. Every missed charge, every incomplete note, every breakdown in communication is money that your practice earned but didn't collect. And remember, insurers don't usually call and say, "Hey, you forgot to bill us." That responsibility is 100% on us. Training your staff is a key factor in being able to retain as much of your revenue as possible. Identify your top 3 denied codes and then train around them. This can save your practice thousands of dollars. Don't let workflow and documentation sabotage your revenue. Next month's webinar will be on Thursday, September 18th at 2 p.m. East. Here we're going to be talking about boosting your practice's revenue by integrating clinical trials. And we're going to have a special guest speaker, Mark Mayo. He is new to my team, and he does ophthalmic photography, slit lamp photography, imaging. He teaches all of this, fluorescein angiography, and clinical trial photography, which is really important in clinical trials, because if you miss something or take a photo that doesn't count towards the trial, it can really cause big problems in the clinical trial. So if you're doing clinical trials or you do imaging and you need some training, Mark is your guy. He's going to be our special speaker next month. This is where iTech training comes in. We provide training for staff on coding, documentation, and workflow processes. We help practices identify staff who can become internal trainers and give them the tools to succeed. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next month.